Hi, I'm Theresa Conway-Hayes in Meridian, Idaho, and I call myself the Stampin' Bookkeeper. So you can find me on social media and the web as the Stampin' Bookkeeper or Stampin' Bookkeeper. So today's episode of Stamping with Theresa, Stamping Live with Theresa, is going to be about using black cardstock paper with white pigment ink and white embossing powder, or it will be white pigment ink to paper with dry embossing. And so for the dry embossing, I chose the mosaic embossing folder and the beaded embossing folder, and that's not the full name of it. But I've already put, no, I didn't. Okay, yes I did. I put it away. So I can't grab that name right now. But if you want to know more, please put any questions in the comments and I will be happy to answer those for you. So I've got a little bit different of a camera setup today that I'm playing with. And everything I do is playing, experimenting, whether it be crafting or technology, whatever. I'm one of those types of people who believes in jumping in, getting my feet wet. The more I do it, the better I'll be, just like when I was a child and I started walking. So I'm not much of a planner. I am a planner, but I also like to be spontaneous as well. So let's go ahead and get started. See if my, okay. So yeah, you see my different camera setup that I've got right now. So I've got my little talking head, which when I'm looking down at my workspace, you're basically going to see the top of my head. All right, so I'm going to get comfortable here and show you what I've got. Now this was the first one that I did, so I'm going to adjust my camera because I don't like where that's looking at. There we go, that's a little bit better. Now I'll turn it a little bit. Well, that's unpleasant, seeing my arm like that. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the talking head. It's kind of cool, but it's not really my style, so let's get rid of that. And that's not what I wanted. That's what I wanted. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn this a little bit. And that looks better. All right, so before we get started, also the April code is QHM32BJP. And again, you can find me as the Stampin' Bookkeeper.com. And I actually have it wrong on my little asset there for Switcher Studio because it doesn't have the word the, and that is the first time I've noticed that. Probably have had that there for a year, so I'm gonna have to remember that and get that fixed. Okay, let's talk about stamping now. Let me use this bone folder to burnish this card base. So we're gonna use a black card base, and we're gonna be getting white all over everything. On the front, it's not going to matter. And we're going to put this black layer onto this black card base. Now when I do this, I'm just looking to see how straight everything looks. And sometimes I don't care if there's more space on the top and bottom vertically versus side to side horizontally. But then sometimes I do. So let's go ahead and attach this layer here. And we're just going to use a bead of glue all the way around as soon as we can get the glue started. glue's trying to dry out on me, I think. Now it's trying to come out. Okay, so I tried to put enough glue on there to have some wiggle room. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the layer down exactly the way that I want it to be. And then I'm going to trim it after I'm done. I'm going to see if I can get some more light on here. Okay, that's fine. Now I'm going to use the trimmer to trim off a little bit of the bottom, because who says that our cards always have to be 5.5 across and 4 1/4 across? Across this way and then across this way. No one. I mean, someone may, but it's not gospel. So whenever I want my card to look a little bit more perfect to me, then I will do some manual trimming. And now I've got a card that's probably 5 1/4 across or something like that. And that's okay. It will fit in my envelope. It will look beautiful. And that is all that matters. Alright, so now because this is a black card, we're going to need to have an insert. And because I trimmed this card, I'm going to have to trim my insert. Because all my layer ones, is what I call them, are cut to 4 by 5 1/4. So the 4 inches is going to work just fine. And now that looks beautiful. I didn't tell Switcher to load comments, so just now I did that. I don't know if it will pick up anything that was commented prior to me loading it. So if I missed anything, if anybody is here, that's one thing that I wish Switcher Studio would do. I wish it would tell me if somebody was here. Now, once somebody comments or they hit the like button, any of the like buttons, then I can see that, and that tells me that someone was watching me live. But, you know, on Facebook, you can see a 1 or a 2, whatever, when people join your live. You can't see that on Switcher Studio, but I wish that you could. All right, so these cards are, you know, I was going to say they're going to be very easy, but actually this is kind of messy, this technique of using white pigment ink, first of all, on the stamp, and then stamping the black cardstock, and then covering it with white embossing powder, and then heating it. That's a little bit of an effort, but I think it looks gorgeous. So that's this one, and recently I have decided to build up my stockpile of cards and not put any sentiments on them, because I may be giving them to nursing homes, and you know, I don't want it to say happy birthday if I'm going to be donating it to a nursing home, or what else do they call them? Assisted living, something like that. So I haven't decided if I'll put any sentiments in it or just leave it so that the caregiver can write a note in there, and it just looks gorgeous the way it is. I may even send some sentiments with the cards so that they have, you know, like dimensionals on them with the backing not pulled, so that the caregiver can program the cards the way they want them. So let's move on to our next black on black card. So we're going to take another black card base. This one hasn't been scored, which I personally prefer it when I score them, because I have bifocals and it makes it really difficult to see when I've got the edges lined up. other glasses are trifocals, but these bifocals work best for when I'm looking at the computer. Okay, now for my second favorite. No, this is my third favorite because I'm not going to jump from technique to and then back to other technique. So I use the same technique here. I use a background stamp. This is the birch background stamp. I use white pigment ink. This time I use the excuse me, the embossing buddy, and then I inked it and embossed it, and yeah, so these two are the same. So let's see if I trim this yet. No, I did not trim it. So we're going to trim this so that it looks good on here. I'm not going to trim a lot, just a teeny tiny bit. And I'm going to trim this side. Just a teeny tiny bit. Make sure that was straight. Okay. Now let's see if it's okay on the sides. It needs just a little bit on the side, and I almost felt like that was crooked. Let's do this side. Okay, the only thing I don't like is I folded the card a little crooked, and that's what's bothering me. So I'm just going to trim that up. Ooh, and I just saw an area that didn't get embossed. Okay, let me see if I can grab that. We're going to have a little noise. Okay, so that's what's cool about using the white pigment ink, is no, that was not a matter of not being embossed. That was a matter of that's the white pigment ink, and embossing powder didn't adhere to it, which is fine. I actually was hoping for a little bit more of that, actually, because this isn't your typical heat embossing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put this one on. I'm not going to fight that glue again. Really hard to see where you're lining this up at. Happy with that. So there's another really cool card. This could be a more masculine card for a guy, for masculine. And I'll put that over to the side. Okay, now this is beaded bauble or something like that. And this one, I took the black cardstock layer, I ran it through the embossing folder, and it's bugging me that I can't remember what it's called, so I'm going to grab that real quick. Beads and Baubles. I did this with beads and baubles. Okay, so then I took Versamark ink, and I did ink to paper for this one. And that reminded me that when you do that with Versamark, it pretty much covers the whole layer. And so you have to take your finger, or I had so much on here, I grabbed a paintbrush and I made a crazy mess. So not one of my favorites, but this one I will go ahead and mount it, and I will do something more with it. I'm not going to leave it, this one, plain like that, because I think it doesn't look, I think it looks too messy plain like that. So as you can see, the white embossing powder gets all over everything and is super noticeable. Uh-oh, I forgot to trim it. So this one is going to cover the whole area. I'm just going to make sure it looks good on the top. And if I need to, I'll trim it down on the bottom. Okay, I like that for a beginning. Probably would be good for a Christmas card, you know, kind of looks like snow in the background, but we're going to go with it. Okay, now this one, I said, well, I wasn't crazy about doing the Versamark to paper, so I went back to the white pigment ink and I embossed with the mosaic embossing folder first on the white cardstock, and then I took the white pigment ink and did ink to paper. This one I like this. Feels good, looks good, and I'm going to make sure, first of all, I ran out of black card bases. So, just for grins, let's see what this will look like on a white card base. Thanks for the like, viewer. You know, I am kind of liking that on a white card base. So, because I don't have any more black card bases left, I'm going to go ahead and trim this down just a smidgen. Just a smidgen on one side. Do it on this side. Yes, I like that. Now, I'm noticing that this card wasn't folded perfectly. I can see a little bit of overlap, so I'm just going to take a smidgen off of there. This is real hard to get straight, so I'm going to take a little bit more off on this side. That's getting better. So it's better just to take a little tiny bit off at a time than to get crazy. Okay, I'm going to go with that. And I'm going to make sure I use glue because I'm going to need wiggle room. See if my glue will cooperate. Okay, I must have pushed past whatever was blocking it before. Need the wiggle room. Okay, that should be good wiggle room. Don't have to worry about the orientation on this. All right. So that one looks pretty good by itself as well. But I am going to go ahead and first look at my what I call my possibles. And this little doodad right here is actually from the Mosaic Suite. And this DSP has been embossed with the tin tile, I think it's called. Let's take a look. It's over on this page. It's actually, it was embossed with the tin tile 3D embossing folder. So we've got embossing on top of embossing. And I think that this all goes pretty good together. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on there. That's why it's fun to keep those extras, because that made this a very quick card, because this was already done. Ooh, I just came up with an idea for the other card. I'm thinking about using the scrappy strip technique for the other card. I would cover up a lot. I gotta think about it. Let's see if I can get a help to eye this. That looks about as straight as I can get it. So that card is definitely done. Just put that up on the shelf. Okay. Sometimes I have to look at my cards for a little bit to decide how much I do like them, or maybe change my mind about what I've done. This one is what I'm thinking about doing the scrappy strip with. And that's why I've got some of these strips out here. So I've already got some colors. No idea how these colors will look. And that one's not long enough. This one is long enough. This one is long enough. And that one is long enough. This one is not long enough. Okay. So these don't work. I'm going to go ahead and put these Sahara sand away. And we've got green and purple. A couple different greens and purple. Okay. So I really don't want more than this, because I don't want to cover the whole card. I'm going to leave quite a bit uncovered. So this is going, because this is such a small piece, this is going to be my first straight piece, because you want one edge to have a straight edge on it. And when I cut, I always hold this plastic guard down to keep the paper from slipping, and then giving myself a not a straight cut, a crooked cut. Okay, so I've got a straight edge here. I'm going to trim this just a little bit more. Now I've got 3 pieces of purple. Alright, so now we're going to start with this piece. I like to lay it down on the cardstock so that I can see how long I want the blue strip bead to be. Then I butt it up against there. Now, usually I don't butt it up against there. I'm going to try some of these butting them up against there and some of them not butting them up against there. Now it's hard to slide this with this having embossing powder on it, so that makes it interesting. I'm going to grab a heavy block so that it can hold these down because of that embossing. I want to make sure that it's being held into place for a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to take another piece of Gorgeous Grape. Then I'm going to take Granny Apple Green. This one I'm going to butt it up against. Again, this is me experimenting. I like to experiment. We don't know what different looks will look like if we're not brave and if we don't give it a try. want that one there. And I'm going to want this one here because that's going to be a straight edge. It's going to be right there. So I want this one here. I think that will work. Okay, so we're at 34 minutes now, so let's go ahead and get this trimmed off. I should have been more careful because that was my fold, I think. No, it wasn't. Good. That was close. Okay, so for the side that has the fold, I'm going to be more careful. This is messy. I've got glue on my scissors. I've got glue on my worktop. I've got glue on the back of my card. Scrappy strips can be messy, but nothing that can't be fixed. So that side, this glue can come off with the, I'll use the eraser on that. And this side could use a little bit more off of it. Just gonna take a little teeny tiny bit off. Oh, bummer. Okay, that time it didn't work. Usually it does. Well, it actually doesn't look too bad, but I'm gonna try and fix it. There. That's better. Okay, so now we've got another card base, and these are all pretty neat. I don't know, maybe I should have worked on gluing the edges a little bit better, but I like that now. I like that a lot better than what it looked like a couple minutes ago. So now we've got 3 cards. I thought I did 4. Let's see. No, I guess I only did 3. Okay, so we have 3 cards with no sentiments on them, but they are ready to go. Oh yeah, I did do 4. because I put a sentiment on one of them. So this is sending healing hugs. That would work because, you know, maybe some people's psyche is kind of off right now. Maybe they're lonely or something. And so healing is an appropriate word for that as well. So these are ready to go. Oops, these are going to need white inserts inside of them, but other than that, they're ready to go. And that's what I had for you today. So thanks for joining me for another episode of Stamping Live with Theresa. And I look forward to the next time that we meet. And if ever you're watching one of my live presentations and you would like to stamp with me via Zoom, then we can always, we can stop the live presentation right then and there. Because like I said, I'm spontaneous. And we can start a Zoom meeting, and then you can use your device on a tripod to share your work area after you've joined the meeting, and then we can stamp together. You can stamp with your own project, I'll stamp with my own project, or we can plan a project, whatever makes you happy. So I will see you next time, and thanks again. Bye.